Okay, today we're going to be talking about the absolute rulers of early Russia. One thing you need to understand about this time period is it is at the end of the Byzantine Empire, which bordered southern Russia at the time. And the early rulers of Russia really took the Byzantine Empire and the Roman Empire to heart and tried to model some of their government, some of their architecture after the late Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire era. And even the term Tsar, which is the leader of Russia, comes from Caesar, which was the leader of Rome at the time. But let's get moving on the rulers of early Russia. We're going to be talking about the time period of 1460 up to 1750-ish. All right, the first guy we're going to talk about is Ivan the Great. The Ivan the Great got his name because he expanded the Russian Empire. He lived from 1462 to 1505. I'm sorry, he ruled from 1462 to 1505. He's often called Ivan the Great because he did greatly expand Russia's territory, almost tripled its land holdings, and made Russia much more modern and influenced world economics and world politics for the first time. So what we're going to be talking about as far as land, and this particular section right here is Russia before Ivan the Great. And you can see the word Muscovy here, and that's an old Russian term for Russia. It's actually short for the Duchy of Moscow, which Moscow is in here somewhere if you look. And the Duchy of Moscow, or Muscovy, or Russia, bordered the Swedish Empire to the north, the Polish Empire to the west, and the Kazakh region of the south. And you can kind of see the Ottoman Empire is down here as well. Another thing that Ivan the Great did was he centralized Russian power, or Russian government and power. Before Peter the Great, or Ivan the Great, Russia was really split up into a bunch of different noble families called boyars. And these boyars, or noble families, ruled their little areas until Ivan the Great consolidated their power into one area. All right, now we're going to move on to his grandson, Ivan the Terrible. So Ivan the Great was Ivan the Third, and Ivan the Terrible was Ivan the Fourth. And the guy between the two was not called Ivan the Fourth; it was Ivan the Terrible. So he was Ivan the Great's grandson. Ivan the Terrible came to power, or he became the Tsar of Russia at age 3. But because he was too young, the boyars, or the nobles of Russia, ruled in his stead up until he was 16. And at that time, Ivan the Terrible was really sick of the nobles, the boyars, and took power for himself. He ruled from 1547 to 1560, and it was marked by prosperity and expansion in the early parts of his reign. The last 24 years, 1560 to 1584, was marked by terror and paranoia and near destruction of the Russian Empire due to his wife's death. It really apparently shook him. This picture we're looking at right here is that is Ivan the Terrible, and he got into a nasty argument with his oldest son, apparently, and quote unquote accidentally killed his son, who was the heir to the Tsardom, the throne, which was very unfortunate because the guy who did get the throne, Ivan's second son, was not anywhere near as strong or as good as a leader. So after the death of Ivan the Terrible and his two sons, because he killed his oldest son, and then Ivan the Terrible died, and then Ivan's second son ruled for a very short period of time before he died. And then Russia became a mess because they had no clear leader. There was a power vacuum, and the nobles once again took power and battled for the Tsardom. And again, the Russian leaders, or the Russian noble families, are called boyars. They fought over control, Many boyars and their families were assassinated, murdered, poisoned, stabbed, killed, etc. But after several years and after many of the boyar families were eliminated, the Romanov family gained control. And they put Peter the First, or Peter the Great, as Tsar of Russia, and the Romanov family ruled for the next 300 years. And their death, or the end of the Romanov family, came during 1917, and it was the Decembrist revolt after the Communist revolt during World War I. And again, as I stated earlier, Tsar is short for the Roman word of ruler. All right, let's talk about Peter the Great a little bit. So Peter the Great, this is a picture of him right here, was great for the same reason that Ivan the Great was. He expanded the territory of Russia. He gained absolute power of Russia in 1696, and he ruled in tandem with his half-brother. So him and his half-brother ruled together. It was kind of a split power, but after his half-brother's death, Peter the Great gained absolute power over Russia. So let's talk a little bit about Russia. So even up to 1700, Russia had a very medieval social structure. So it was the boyars were the landowners, and they had servants or serfs or peasants working their land. And just like medieval Europe, the serfs belonged to the land, and any time a boyar sold their area or moved, the serfs were sold with the property. And this type of social structure ended in Western Europe by the late 1400s, early 1500s. So Russia was always a little behind the times. But after Peter visited Western Europe, he did a 6-month tour of Western Europe, and he wanted to modernize Russia and westernize Russia. He also wanted a southern warm water port for ships, because the port that they had was near Sweden and always froze up every year. And as Ivan the Great did, Peter continued the expansion of Russia. So this is Russia during Peter the Great's reign. And the big thing that Peter the Great did was he gained a lot of area in Siberia. And here is the warm water port, the Black Sea, that he gained. So Peter the Great's attempt to westernize Russia included potatoes. So you all think of potatoes as something that everybody's always had, but potatoes were introduced to Europe and Russia after the discovery of North and South America in 1492, and then it made it to Western Europe in the mid-1500s. But it wasn't until Peter the Great's reign that potatoes were introduced to Russia. Now, potatoes are a good crop to have because they have a lot of calories, very nutrient-rich food. They can grow in pretty much any soil, and they grow abundantly. And you can also make whiskey or vodka out of it. So he also started Russia's first newspaper, which he edited. He rose the status of women a little bit, not a whole lot, mostly by allowing them to attend social gatherings out in the open, and also political gatherings. He helped limit the power of the nobles or the boyars, and he expanded education, especially in the math and the science and the literature. All right, so Peter the Great, after he was done, his son came to power and kind of continued his legacy, and then his grandson came to power, and he wasn't very effective, but he did marry Catherine, who took over, kind of. So Peter III was very unstable. Catherine married him and imprisoned her husband for 6 months. I'm sorry, let me start that over. Peter III was very unstable, and Catherine married him, and after Peter became Tsar of Russia, 6 months into his reign, Catherine had him imprisoned because he was so unstable. And then Catherine became Empress of Russia. in 1762. And mysteriously enough, Peter III died only a few weeks after he was imprisoned. And a lot of people assumed that Catherine had him poisoned. So Catherine married Peter III, who was Peter the Great's grandson, had him imprisoned, and then had him killed, and then gained power. Catherine admired Peter the Great's modernization of Russia and pretty much continued his legacy of westernization and modernization. Catherine the Great reformed the Russian government. It was very antiquated, not much bureaucracy there, and she fixed a lot of government issues that they were having at the time. Continued the expansion of Russia mostly into the southern region by the Caspian and Black Sea. Began to create a true empire through colonization, so it wasn't just Asia and Russia that they were conquering. They were into Africa and the Middle East, and really expanded the wealth of Russia, creating what they called the Russian Golden Age. And as you can see here, here's a map of expansion of Russia, and this area down here is where Catherine the Great really expanded Russian territory. So that's all I have for you for Russian early authoritarian leaders, and there will be some questions during this whole thing, but good luck, and that is it for today.